RotoGrinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender at Blender HD. If you want to follow me there on Twitter. And this is the show where we go over yesterday's slate. We talk DFS strategy. We take a look through results DB. We go through the process of playing DFS. This is a teaching show, not a pick show. Remember, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. There's an NBA slate, 6 games, 8 hours from now. By now and then, who knows, right? Is Embiid playing? Is Jeremy Grant playing? Right? We don't know, right? Is Porzingis going to sit? We don't know. That'll change everything. So to go over and try to build lineups now seems kind of pointless till later in the day. So you got to review. Too few people review their process. Okay, so I mean that's why I focus so much on this show on process and review, because not enough people do it, but I do it in the morning, right? Sometimes I slack off. Sometimes, only for 5 minutes, right? 10 minutes. Let me take a look. Get on with my life, right? Sometimes I dive deep. Sometimes I spend an hour or two. And I wanted to highlight that because today, I see you guys in the YouTube chat, by the way. Give me those thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Good morning, everyone in the chat room. You could always post your questions, any type of comments, no matter if I'm rambling on for 20 minutes. You could always post it in the YouTube chat. I will scroll back. I will answer as many as I can. But yesterday was a good day. Not in cash games. I mean, I kind of broke even on Draftkings cash, failed on Fanduel, but I did come in 6th in the putback dunk. I was competing for first within the second half of the last games. But I didn't make it. But this is one of my favorite contests on DraftKings. It's a $250 entry, 4 entry max, and I enter one line. I don't enter 4 because the payout structure is fairly flat, right? I'd rather kind of be like maybe 12.5, 10,000, a little bit not 7,500 up top over there. But I like the nice. It's a bit flatter. Came in 6th with the lineup: Cole Anthony, KCP, Giddey, Giannis, Precious, Graham, Bane, who got cut on his head or something. He had to go to the locker room. He didn't come back. The game wasn't competitive in the 4th quarter anyway. And Russell Westbrook. So that netted me $3,000 on a $250 entry. So that made my night profitable, but not really by that much, right? FanDuel, I got whooped because I played a non-Giannis lineup, and Giannis put up enough points that the up and down build, it was a 2v2. I had to choose between a Giannis lineup and a non-Giannis lineup. I didn't think Giannis was necessary on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he was. And didn't make it. So you can see Squirrel Patrol's right above me, right? See, because Nurkic got there at 35, right? He had Batum, right? If I would have played Batum over KCP, I would have gotten 10 extra points. I would have came in 2nd for 7,500. And that was an option for me. But I don't build my lineups by hand. Okay. But I don't build my lineups by I'm going to build, X amount of lineups. Like I built 10 lineups yesterday. Right. I saved this from yesterday just to show you. So what I'm doing is I'm building hundreds of lineups. Right. Have 100 set. Seeing what they look like compared to a cash lineup. And seeing where that ownership line is, where I could, I found the optimal was at 283. And I got a dip down to like 158 for this lineup, right? Or a lineup similar to this, sacrificing only about 3 points. So I judged that to be the line. Instead of playing lineups that were like at 200, 210, like I could drop about 60 ownership points for 3 projection points. So I'm like, okay, that seems good for the contest that I'm playing, which is a little bit smaller field. Not ridiculously small field, 400 to 1,000 to 1,200, somewhere around that range. If I were playing a larger field, maybe I'd go down a little bit lower. But looking through lineups, I saw that like somewhere between like 135 and 160 was like I could find lineups that project well enough that are good there. So I run lineups, and I got a lot of Desmond Bane, I got a lot of Josh Giddey, I got a lot of I got a lot of Precious Achua. I did get a lot of Malik Monk. So seeing like, okay, I'm playing 10 lineups. Like, what 10 lineups do I want to play? Because I could play all 10 with Desmond Bain. I could play all 10 with Josh Giddey. I could play all 10 with a bunch of these guys. But I thought the leverage play on the slate was to play Anthony Davis over Russell Westbrook because of Anthony Davis's late status. And then he was in. And the ownership difference was vast. And I thought there were a lot of other good guard plays on the slate. Right? We got Devontae Graham. We got, I played SGA, Chris Paul, even CJ McCollum. I got Ray John. If you don't play Westbrook, you play Rondo instead. Right. So I was looking at those types of lineups. I thought KCP projected in a very similar range as Monk and as Batum at almost no ownership. So like he ended up staying in my player pool. So like in my player pool, I only had 34 players that I chose. And you can see here, I adjusted the ownership, right? So I'm basing my ownership on the large field contest. Then there's the small field ones, and then I pare it down from there. But in looking around the industry, like I was way off on Fred VanVleet. Like I was Westbrook came in way higher than I thought he would come. Right? I mean, we had Westbrook on DraftKings at 21.8. Like I knew that was low. But around the industry, most places 24 to 28, right? A little bit more balanced. Obviously, Monk and Giannis were the highest, but a lot of the field just clicked on Westbrook, Giannis, build my lineup. So now, based on my numbers here that I ran, it's all based on my projected ownership. But had I known that Russell Westbrook would be way higher owned, this lineup actually is not 158, it's like 178, right? And then the Cole Anthony lineups come down. This is 12 instead of 22. So where would this lineup be, right? Taking the actual ownership. Like once I saw Fred VanVleet's ownership at like 10%, and I had him projected at 32, I should have had more Fred VanVleet in my lineups. I had one Fred VanVleet, and I was less likely to play him because I thought he was going to be 30+% owned. And he wasn't. Right. And you're not going to be perfect. Trust me. You're not perfect in predicting ownership. But on this specific slate, I was off enough that I wanted to rerun my process. So I wanted to rerun my process in front of you guys just to show how I would review this slate. So essentially what I'm looking to do is you're always trying to think, had I known ownership was, not had you known what they did in the basketball game. Had I known this guy would get injured, I wouldn't play him. Like that's who cares about the results. Had you have known how the field would have reacted, would your lineup be any different? So like what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look in the large field GPP. So I'm going to look at the ownerships here, right here. And I'm going to plug in the actuals in. Okay. So I'm going to move this to the side because it's easier if I have two screens. I'm going to go through. Right. So I have the projected ownership and I'm going to change it to the actual ownership. So if we go just by P-own, so Monk wasn't 42, Monk was 52, right? Giannis was 38, not 40. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to put in 0.27. Like I just even it out. Melton came in actually way under 24 instead of 36. VanVleet was, he was like 10 in the large field, 13. Okay. I'm just taking the first two numbers. It's 13.95. So if you're rounding up, it would be 14, but I'm just taking the first two numbers. We don't have to be perfect, right? You could drag this all into Excel and you could do it exactly if you want. But here's a way that if you don't know how to do those functions, you could just do it manually. So SGA came in a little bit under 30, came in at 25. Batum came in much lower than I thought. I guess people just didn't like clicking on his name. He was owned. But Batum was 15, not 28. Russell Westbrook was way, way, way higher. People were making those stars and scrubs bills way more than I thought. 44 here. So let's put in 44. Desmond Bain was higher, I think higher than 24. He was 31. 31. Grayson Allen, he was owned enough, right? 11. So not 24. OG came in at 15. Cole Anthony came in much lower than I thought. I think he was like 11. Where's Cole Anthony here? Search players. 14 in the large field. Dort was 9. You'll see why I'm doing this, okay? It'll just look like, oh, why are you putting in all these? Why do you need to put them all in? Well, we're going to run lineups and see how different they are had I have known. So Anthony Davis came in lower than I thought he would be. I thought I was getting him good at 20%. If he was 15, I mean, I think I did well there at 15. Trent, 7. So not 16. Precious came in around 16, right? He's around there, 17. Close enough. Josh Giddey, I think, came in a little bit higher. No, about the same. Oh, I'm close there, 15. Oubre, with Rozier out, was only 7. Right, because basically stars and scrubs is just knocking, because with Westbrook's ownership going up, like all the cheaper guys are going to get a little bit more owned. Tatum, who I didn't play any of, but he was only 7. Like these balanced builds, just like, there weren't as many as I thought there would be. Nurkic 8. Mo Bamba was more popular on FanDuel. He was 11. CJ, I thought would be. I thought CJ would be much higher owned. I thought I was coming in low on 12. No, but it was 7. Middleton 6. I mean, look how dramatically these differences are. Devontae Graham, I think, was actually higher. Devontae Graham, no 8. He was higher in the smaller field. Rondo wasn't 10. I thought around the industry, people had projected Rondo much higher. 4 for Rondo, not 104. LaMelo 10. Okay, that's good. Scotty Barnes, who was more of a play on FanDuel than on DraftKings, he was 3. Chris Paul was 5. Jonas Valanciunas came in much lower than 8, even on DraftKings 6. Okay, not that bad of a difference. Trae Young is 4. And of course, I'm not counting the guys that I didn't have in my player pool. Maybe I would have had different guys in my player pool had I known the ownership. But I can only do what I did. Harden came in at 2. Durant, we're almost done. Durant came in at 3. Rashawn Holmes came in at 3. Close enough. Caldwell Pope was barely owned. 2 instead of 4. D'Angelo Russell. Barely 1. Well, I mean 0 essentially. 0.891. Okay, so we got all of those in. I'm going to move this over here so we could see exactly what I did. So I'm putting in the actual ownerships in. Okay, so now I was using a range that I found, which may be wrong now, between 135 and 160. So based on if I knew if the ownership was perfect, that what I would put in, what would be the best lineups in this range? And what would they project? Right, because we have the top optimal for a cash game lineup right here is 288.79. Okay. So I was looking to build lineups in the 280 range. Right. We take a look at my lineups, like 280. Right. So let's build 50 for time's sake. A lot of times I've built 300. So what do these lineups look like when I'm capped at that 160 total ownership? So what do they look like? Okay, still getting a lot of Bane, a lot of Precious, got a lot more McCollum. You actually get more Batum. You don't get as much Devontae Graham as I did yesterday. Don't get as much Cole Anthony as I did yesterday. I don't get as much, let's see, Giannis, I still get Caldwell Pope. I get more Scotty Barnes based on his 3% ownership. Right, I get more Batum, right, because the ownership changes everything. So like the top lineup is more like this. I get much more McCollum. Westbrook Davis. I get a lot of Westbrook Davises together. Right? Let's say I didn't want to play Westbrook and Davis together because I'm getting a lot of them. Because Davis's ownership is just driving, 15%. Right? It's still getting 283. Right? Actually, these lineups are better than the ones that I made yesterday. Right? Because the other ones were projecting at 280 for that ownership. These are 283. So my ownership discrepancy cost me 3 projected points. So that, to me, that's how you judge on a day-to-day basis. Based on what I believe the ownership was going to be, it cost me in 3 projection points for being off on ownership. So let's say I didn't want to play lineups with Westbrook and Davis together, right? So I think I played 1 or 2 like that. So if I go in and I say, no Westbrook and Davis, something like that. Maybe I didn't want to play Bane and Melton together. Maybe something. We're just putting in some of the things, right? Anything else that stands out here that I wouldn't have done? I have no idea. So let's run 50 again. So see if we get Westbrook lineups, we get Davis lineups. Okay. Now we got a lot of Raptors together. So maybe I don't play more than two Raptors in the same lineup, maybe. I don't get that many of those. Still get a lot of Bane, still get a lot of Precious. Still get 282.72. Right? I don't get a lot of Malik Monk. Actually, Malik Monk is the thing that gets knocked out of because he's 52% owned. And if we take a look at the projections. So for instance, from a median projection standpoint, Malik Monk was 24.43 at 52%. So you could understand why, like, Caldwell Pope was 19.63, but at only 2% ownership. Right? Or you just avoid that type of construction altogether. I mean, even Rondo was 18.86 at 4% ownership. So to be 10, 12, 14 times less owned. So how would have my lineups changed that dramatically? Would I gotten much more Fred VanVleet? Well, I've gotten some, right? I could have played this type of lineup. Rondo, VanVleet, Bane, Giannis, Precious, Shai, Batum, McCollum. This lineup would have cashed, right? This lineup would have been fine with Giannis and VanVleet. Shai at 47, Batum at 26, Rondo at 18, Bane at almost 30. Right, this would have done just fine. It doesn't look that much different than my other line. No, it really doesn't. Here's one with Cole Anthony, Kelly Oubre. Right? This doesn't look all that different from my line. I just have more VanVleet. Like, obviously I'm just looking at my VanVleet lineups. Right? Rondo, Davis, these don't look that different. Right? I would have gotten more OG. Would have gotten more Middleton. I didn't play any Middleton. But I mean, it's the same type of thing, like with Malik Monk. Like, I barely got Malik Monk. And in the lineups that I played, I mean, I played 4 Malik Monk lineups, but I didn't have to. Right? I didn't get any Rashawn Holmes anymore. Didn't get any Jonas, Nurkic, Bamba. I don't think it did. How much Bamba did I get? Cole Anthony here. Yeah, not much Bamba. Right? Because it's being filled by Precious Achiuwa. But let's say we take Precious Achiuwa out. So what do the top 50 lineups look like in that ownership range without Precious in it? Do we still stay above 280 at least? And this is based on actual ownership now. Okay, 282. Okay, so you didn't have to. You're playing Rondo and Westbrook together. I'm not sure if you do that necessarily, but I mean, yeah, the non-Precious lineups look pretty similar also. And they look similar to the lineups today. I mean, it's not that dramatically different. I got a Trae Young lineup here. Let's say I didn't play Bane. Right? Let's see what do those lineups look like without Bane or Achiuwa. Do I stay above 280? Let's take a look. Okay, just let's see. 280. Yeah, I get just that 280. It's obviously going to have a lot of Batum in it. A lot of CJ McCollum at 7% ownership. I thought he was a great play yesterday. At his 12% ownership at 7%, it makes him. I probably would have played. Like, how many McCollum lineups did I have out of 10? 3. I probably would have played him in more like 6 to 8 lineups then. Had I known his ownership was only going to be 7 versus 12. It has nothing to do with what he scored. He scored like 42 points or something. It has nothing to do with the results. It has to do with what would I have known. Obviously, once I start taking out Precious and Bane, now I start getting a lot more Monk. Got a lot more Batum. So let's do the opposite way. Take out Batum and Monk and put back Bane and Precious. Well, I wasn't getting that much Monk here anyway, but I took out Batum. Who ends up filling that spot? I'm assuming I'm going to get a little bit more KCP, maybe a little bit more Anunoby or Grayson Allen. Josh Giddey. Yeah, Josh Giddey gets bumped up. So I'm taking away a small forward spot and a shooting guard spot. Right, but I would have gotten more Scotty Barnes. Like, Scotty Barnes didn't end up in just anything. Thinking he was going to be 10% owned, not 3% owned. Here's Mo Bamba. The Anthony Melton, I wouldn't have cared that much about. And I would have had a lot more CJ McCollum. So this is what I do. Go through, take a look, and go compare your projected ownership to the actual ownership. And so how would have my lineups changed? How would have my lineups been different? As you see here, my lineups wouldn't have been that dramatically different. Sometimes you'll see that it would be dramatically different. Based on this, I see that I probably would have had more Van Vliet, more McCollum, a little bit less Westbrook. I still probably would have played Anthony Davis. Desmond Bane, Precious, I still would have had plenty of. I would have had less of Malik Monk, that's what I was planning on at 52% ownership. I would have less Graham and Bamba, and they did well. That would have been made up for the fact that I have Van Vliet and OG and SGA, a little bit more Giddey. They did well. So what do I learn from this? That doesn't look that much. Right? My lineups look about the same. Right? Would I have played 3 Thunder together? No. I mean, I would have made some rules. Right? Looking right, maybe not play 3 Raptors together. So I've eliminated some of these lineups, but for the most part, the lineups kind of look. There's nothing that just stands out that, oh, now that the ownership is this way, Gary Trent is in 68% of my lineups. Like it didn't work out that way. Still get plenty of Westbrook. Still get plenty. I mean, Rondo was only 4% owned, so I should have played him at 3,100 more so than like KCP, even though KCP was coming up plenty. So I hope you understand this process. This is something that you could do in the morning. You could use Results DB. Go to the ownership of the large field contest, whatever it is that you're using the ownership to plug into your system, and plug in, take all the ownership and put it in, because we have the historic information, right? So Jalen McDaniels had himself a game, right? The Charlotte bench, Jared Vanderbilt started and got 33 fantasy points, and no one played him. Harrell benefited from Gafford's injury. Ayton had a game. Baisley had a game. Simons had a game. I mean, Giddey was good. I mean, you can take a look through here. But like, leave when you're done with lineup HQ for the night, leave it up. Right? So you could still utilize, what you have in here, and then change the ownership and see what would have changed. Right? The projections aren't changing, but the ownership is changing. And if you're looking like, oh, I'm building lineups that have a max total ownership of 160. It's like, well, what are those best lineups now that you don't have Malik Monk at 44 and you have him at 52? Now that you don't have Fred VanVleet at 32, you have him at 14 or whatever. Now, what does that look like? And if you see big differences, you go, wow, had I known that, I would have had these types of lineups. And wow, I would have done really well. Well, then you got to get better at projecting ownership. Better at building lineups that are within a certain range. Maybe this was the wrong range. right? I would have to build out a couple of 300 builds to figure out, maybe 160 for the contest that I'm playing is still too low. Maybe I could have played somewhere between 160 and 180, right? If I did something like that, maybe I could have been even chalkier, like 160 to 180. Like, what do those lineups look like? Let me run 50 for there with the actuals. Like, how much projection am I giving up? 285 at 165. Yeah. Yeah, I gave up a little too much projection. Yeah. Because look at these lineups. These lineups look very similar to the ones that I was in, and tons of Russell Westbrook. Essentially, once I up the ownership, it basically says just jam in all the Russell Westbrook. Right. I still have plenty of McCollum, Bane, Giannis. I mean, and I could have played these in the 250, 444 person contest. Are these lineups a little too chalky for like the fadeaway? Maybe. But even then, these aren't that. I mean, 165 is still low. You go through here, right? I mean, you set up groups. Maybe you don't want to play Dort and Giddey together. Maybe you don't want to play Giannis and Middleton together. I mean, this is without using any type of groups whatsoever. Just top 50 lineups, whatever. Yeah, here's Chris Paul. I probably wouldn't have played that much Chris Paul because Fred VanVleet at 13% and Cole Anthony at 14% versus like the twice that I had them at wasn't worth playing Chris Paul at 5. Like the other guys projected just so much better. So I hope you get this. This is another way to use lineup HQ as a tool to get better at DFS. That has nothing to do with just, I need to build lineups and that's the only thing I'm ever going to use it for. I'm going to plug in some settings and press a button and then upload my CSV and not understand what you do. Lineup HQ is a calculator. Why not use it? Use it as a tool to do any type of research, any type of experiments that you'd want. Especially when it's so much easier in lineup HQ than it would be in like trying to figure out if you're not good at Excel or R or Python or scripting out things yourself. Like you could do it this blunt way. This blunt way is going to be directionally accurate more so than most of the field. Going through the YouTube chat. Feel free to post. Give me those tummy thumbs. Michael Dompier, in tournaments, the $3 ownership of players was significantly different than the high dollar ownerships. Is that likely because the sharp players can't enter $3 contests? Yes. The sharper. There are plenty of sharp people that play low stakes contests. I don't want to say that they're not. But on DraftKings, $3 and down, like I can't play those contests, right? The Burrito Brothers can't play those contests, right? Giant Squid, Brick 75, none of them can. So you're getting rid of a lot of 150 maxers that are, the top players in the industry. They can't play those. So typically the ownership is more inefficient in the lower stakes. I mean, that's what I show in Results DB all the time. I mean, if we go to Results DB, you could even bring that up. Well, let's go to NBA. Go to ownership. So $3. What's the name of the $3 contest? What, the sharpshooter? Okay. So we're comparing the sharpshooter to what? The fadeaway? Is that good? Or the 4-point play? Yeah, let's compare the sharpshooter to the 4-point play. Because the 4-point play, like players, top players could play. I could get in these, right? Yeah, okay. Brick 75, they're in there. Okay. So the sharpshooter to the 4-point play. Okay, so we got the 4-point play. They're still low stakes instead of even the fadeaway, just 4-point play and the sharpshooter. Well, actually, let's do all three. Let's do fadeaway, 4-point play, the big one, and the sharpshooter, which is the $3 20 max. Right? So here we go. Monk was even higher owned. Westbrook was even higher owned. The chalk was even higher owned. And the sharpshooter, that $3. What's the size of that contest, though? 4-point play is 29,727. The $3 contest is 79.28. So it's a smaller contest. So it's good. The ownership is going to be a little bit more. It's still, I mean, it's still almost 8,000 entries. It's a smaller field contest. So yeah, the ownership is going to be different. Monk was higher owned. Westbrook was higher. It was about the same. Giannis was much higher owned. Melton was higher owned. Even if we get away from the let's go, the fadeaway to the sharpshooter. Right? Steven Adams was a little bit higher owned than the fadeaway. OG slightly, barely. You're just looking at the green and the yellow. The difference. Jaylen Brown was much higher owned in the fadeaway than he was in the sharpshooter. But is a lot of this difference is because of sharpness or because of just the field size? It's a little bit of both. But you could use results DB to see that. If you're playing the lower stakes contests, you have to adjust that. You know, some people, there's parts of the field that can't see what the good plays are, right? They don't know what the best projected lineups are to begin with. But also in the lower stakes, you have people that are more likely to jam chalk in and go, oh, they're the best players. I got to place all 6 of them. So you get lineups that are all look like cash lineups. So you can take advantage of them a little bit more. It depends. It depends on the context. But this is something that you could look at in results DB. Skylar Hewins, do you have any NFL Showdown videos showing your building process? Probably in the RotoGrinders Premium. Maybe in the Roto Academy. I've done so many videos. I know there's got to be something in there, right? So if you sign up for RotoGrinders Premium, click on that link in the description, get $10 off your first month. You got an entire back catalog of tutorial videos, strategy videos, tons of articles. I mean, sign up, consume everything you can in a month, and then quit. I mean, you could do that if you want. Wig 3H, when you were making your own ownership projections, wouldn't it make sense to increase or maybe double the current projection by what other sites are saying? No, you can't just do that across the board. You can't have that. You can't have 200% ownership, right? So doubling it isn't going to do anything. Everything is if a high price guy is more owned, that means other high price guys in that range are going to be lower owned. So I can't just go in and say, like, if I go here, these are obviously the actuals. Well, if I do an aggregate, Precious is 17, so I'm going to make him 34. Well, if I make him 34, that means other guys are going to have to come. Nurkic can't be 8. He has to be 4. He has to be the other direction, right? If Giannis, let's say Giannis is not, I'm using a very extreme example. Giannis is 90% owned. Well, that means anyone at this, that means Kevin Durant has to be almost nothing owned. Anthony Davis is probably not 15% owned, but 4% owned. So how are you going to fit the guys in the lineup? I mean, like Tatum is going to be 2% owned. So I can't just take Tatum and double it by 7. Oh, I'm going to double Giannis and then I'm going to double Tatum. No, you actually divide. Would have to divide the other one. All the ownership has to equal to what? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 800%. That's what the total ownership has to be. So all these numbers for the entire player pool has to add up to 800 to be balanced. Do I have to get them perfect? Do I have to do all 800? Do I have to do all? I only have 32 players in this pool. Do I have to do all, how many, the other 400 play? No. I'm not looking to be perfect. I'm looking to be directionally accurate. But I know that, the more that Westbrook's ownership goes up, the lower Van Vliet's, lower Cole Anthony. And I had Westbrook at lower than 44 because I thought people would play more balanced builds. They would prioritize Giannis over Westbrook, and there were other guards to play on this slate. I thought it was harder to fill the small forward and power forward spots than, and maybe even the center spot than the guard spots. And that's kind of how it was reflected around the industry. Like you see us, we had as a projected ownership 21.8, which is obviously off. You go to other sites, it was about the same. 24, 28. No one had 44, right? More likely, we had Giannis at 35, and he came in at 38, right? We had Anthony Davis at 16. He came in at 50. But understand that once one guy is off like that, it affects everything else. You get, now that this guy's, now so many other things are going to be off. So it's impossible if there's so many Giannis Westbrook lineups. Some of these other guys have to, CJ McCollum can't be 12% owned. Right? Scotty Barnes can't be 10% owned. Rashawn Holmes can't be 8% owned. Devontae Graham can't be 15. They have to come down. Melton can't be 32. If so many more guard spots are be taken by Westbrook. So you got to start bumping them down. But that's what I do. That's essentially what I do. I look around the industry. I listen to stuff. I look at lineups. I look at cash lineups, and I go, the more and more these guys are jammed into cash lineups, the higher on they're going to be. So I have to use those numbers. I think I'm better at predicting ownership than straight algorithmic and math wise, because human beings aren't rational. Why is there no court IQ for FanDuel? Why? Of course, why wouldn't there be court IQ? Court IQ is for anything. Court IQ exists for anything. But I don't even understand the difference of why it would matter which site. Court IQ. What are you looking to do? I'm just looking on the first one. What? You could click, here's FanDuel, Draftkings, right, for the scoring system, only because it's slightly different. So I don't know what you're talking about. You just click on FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo, SuperDraft. It'll change whatever the fantasy point value is based on their scoring system. It's not going to dramatically make it any much of a difference. So no, we have court IQ for FanDuel. I rarely use court IQ. I bet some people would know the reason why. Because anything you find in court IQ would be in the projection. That's you could find out the why. Why is this guy's projection so high or so low? Well, go to court IQ. You can probably figure it out. Let's see. Anything else in the YouTube chat? Right. Wig 3 says, if everyone's saying Russ is the nuts, then just by that, people will roster him more. Right. But you have to figure out how much more, right? I knew it was more that we had him at 22. I knew it would be more than that. I don't know how much more than that. Right? How much of a priority was Westbrook over Giannis? I just thought with the constructions that you can make, it was more valuable to get power forward, center, small forward type positions filled. And there were enough guards that projected well that maybe it would be more balanced. And it wasn't. I was wrong. The consensus was the ownership across the board everywhere was wrong on that. But if you take a look at the lineups that if I had known, did it change that much? No, it didn't. I still actually, even though Westbrook in my run, I had him at 26 projected ownership. He came in at 44. So you would expect with that extra 18 percentage points of ownership that I'd end up having less of it. And you know what ended up happening? That I had more. Right? So it didn't make it that much of a difference because I already had him in plenty of lineups. So, if you take a look at the lineups differences between my lineups that I did play and the lineups that I possibly would have played, it wasn't that dramatically different. It just maybe out of my 10 lineups, I would have had, like from a diversification standpoint, maybe instead of 3 CJ McCollum lineups, I have 6 CJ McCollum lineups, right? Instead of 8 Anthony Davis lineups, I have 5 Anthony Davis lineups, right? Something like affected more of the diversification, if anything, but the actual lineups, the way they looked, the player pool, the everything, kind of very similar enough that I don't think I was punished that much. Like I said, I think I was punished by anywhere between 1 to 3 points from having inaccurate ownership. But that's a normal range. You're never going to get to the point where you're projecting ownership so well that you're not sacrificing, less than a point. You're not sacrificing less than a point based on the ownership discrepancy between projected and actual. Typically, it's somewhere between that 1 to 3 range. If you're giving up 7, 8 points, then you screwed up. Then your ownership is way off at that point. Trey says, this is incredible. It is. Is this incredible? To me, it's common sense. It's not that incredible. Things finally clicked for me after listening to you all last year and this season. I see things clearly now. I don't care about who it puts in my lineup, and it works out. Play whoever you want. Right, there you go. I got a convert. PWYW. Let's see. Daniel Hutchins says, working through some counterfactuals is an important part of a winning process. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Jacob Calloway says, simming ownership for the contest size is still a big edge. 99% of the field uses ownership made for large field. That's absolutely correct, right? But that's what I do because I'm using that type of ownership is I'm finding that, like, that's to me, how obviously simming the contest is much more precise. I absolutely agree. I know Daniel does that. I know Jacob does that. But if you're not going to sim, I use the blunt way. Finding the range. So when I run lineups like here, I'm going to take off the ownership caps. And I'm going to run 50 lineups. Okay, I already have the groups. Let me get rid of the groups. Okay, let me get rid of any type of do not play this guy with that guy groups, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to run 50 lineups with the actual ownership. It doesn't even matter. I'm not even putting it in. My cash lineup should be number 1. And it isn't. I don't know why. Let's see. Oh, because I took guys out of the player pool. I don't know. Who am I not playing that was in my cash lineup? Did I take people out? I took Batum out, maybe? Yeah. To do an example, yeah, I took Monk out. I took Batum out. Okay, so now let's run it. Okay. So you used this would be the actual ownership in the fadeaway, which is the large field contest. So here you go. Here's my cash line. There you go. Right. 288.79. And that's what would come up here, right? 288.79. Okay, but at 228% total ownership. So now I'm looking for that drop, 205. So it drops here. So I'm going to start removing lineups that don't meet the one that's above it. So 205 looks pretty good for 288. That's a really good line in comparison to some of these other ones. 195. Okay, there's a 195 lineup. So this should be the top 50 optimal lineups. So I'm finding the very top end of the range where I'm sacrificing some projection, yet I'm still getting a lineup that's within the top 50 optimals. Right, here's 188. So I'm going through. Obviously we're using actual ownership now. We're not using projected ownership. So this is like had we have known. So all I'm doing using this process is not finding lineups. I'm just trying to find where the range is. 185, 188, 168. And this is why I said before, I think the range was 160 to 180, not 135 to 160. For the contests that I'm playing, which are somewhere between 400 and 1,200 entries. And 1,700. I play the $88 box out, that's 1,800 entries. So I'm trying to find that range. I don't think I'm going to find anything under 168 here in the top 50. Right. I don't think so. 177, 188, 200. Okay. So now these lineups, these 6 lineups are in the top 50 optimals. Now I'm likely not going to play my cash. Right, the highest owned lineup. I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to go, what do I think of this lineup? Right? Don't worry about the correlation or anything like that. So I'm like, this is playable. But I'm not going to find anything in between 205 and 195 because it would have shown up in the top 50. So I'm probably going to get rid of this also. So now that I'm starting to get like 195, 188, like, and I'm sacrificing like 1.5 points, 2 points of projection for the contest that I'm playing. That's about right. So I got my lowest one is 168. I'm going to have to go lower than this because this was the top 50. So if I went 168 to 195, I should only find basically these 4 lineups. So I need to go a little bit high, a little bit lower. The highest would be 195, which means I would be playing this line. 195, and the lowest is 168. So let me put in 160. So now I would find the range for the contest that I'm playing. For large field contests, that may not be enough leverage. That maybe still be a little bit too chalky. So instead of having to go and like sim out, well, let me change the projected ownership to what I think the ownership is going to be in the $250 putback. Like, I don't know. And then I have to change it for the $100 showtime. And then I have to change it for the $88 box out. Because I mean, the 250 putback is 400 so entries. And the $88 box out is 1,800 entries. Well, there's a difference there. So I'm going to put in 160 to 195. It's like, I believe that's the range of what I'm looking for the contest that I'm playing. Let's see what the 50 lineups there. Let's see if we could find, let's see if there are any. Okay, we got 50. Not capping anything. We may get like 100% of people. Maybe we don't even get 50. Maybe it's stuck. It's stuck. Someone nudge it. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're getting a lot of Malik. Yeah, gonna have to play a lot of Malik Monk then. Let me delete all these other builds to get out of our way. Right, so we got 195 at 286, 192 at 286, 188 at 286, 185. Now these are the lineups that I'd be looking at. How much Malik Monk do I want to play? That's the question. How much of some of these guys do I want to play? Let's say I need to choose 10 of these lineups or 10 lineups like this. This is where I would look. These are the ranges I would look at for the contest, the small to mid-size field that I'm playing. And then at this point, it's just a matter of which lineups do I want to play. I identified the range. I'm not giving up dramatic amounts of projection, right? Not even towards the bottom, right? But probably whatever's at this bottom, like 282, I probably shouldn't give up anything less than that in any lineup. Somewhere around there. So like I said, based on the actual ownership, I was building lineups with a projection around 280, not 282 as my lowest. So hence my margin of error on the slate was 2 projection points based on inefficient projected ownership. But if you see here, I hope people that are maybe new to the pregame show, maybe new to NBA DFS, we reviewed an entire slate. We reviewed an entire process. We reviewed how to go over and re-optimize and like if I had known on the whole process, didn't mention anything about basketball. Nothing about actual basketball. These are just names on a spreadsheet. Using everything about basketball is already in this FPTS number, right? Now it's just a matter of like, what is the field going to do in relation to it? And how do I build plus EV lineups based on that, based on the contest that I'm playing? If you were playing the fadeaway, your range probably wouldn't have been this. You probably wouldn't have been playing, 195 total ownership type of lineups, right? You probably wouldn't have had 80% Malik Monk. You would have found some way to not play him in a lot of lineups. You would have gone low. You would have probably gone more lower in the range that I was in. So I was off for my smaller field stuff, but I still did well. And my lineups didn't look all that dramatically different. A little here, a little there. Probably would have had less Caldwell Pope. Probably would have had less Cole Anthony. Probably would have had, more pressures at Shua. But I'm looking at this going, okay, I would have had more Middleton. Maybe I would have had a Middleton lineup. I didn't have any. But definitely Scotty Barnes at 3%. I would have had 1 or 2 out of 10 of that. But still, I mean, if I put him in instead of someone else, I mean, I probably end up with the same amount of points anyway. My lineups were pretty good. I think out of my 10 lineups, I think 6 out of 10 cash. And obviously 1, cash for 3,000. So very profitable day. Not as profitable as could it have been, but a profitable day nonetheless. Grant Brown, how do we get to the prior day's projections? Curious to see how the winning lineup are top 3 projected and if or how to get to it. You could do that. I have it up right here. There's this date field, right? Just go to the previous date. Go to any date you want. And what it'll do is it'll show the projection and the actual. And you could use projection and actual to optimize. Now, some of these guys, like I showed yesterday, like what would be the top lineup? Like using yesterday, the top 5 lineups possible, right? This is by projection. By actual, the top 5 lineups possible yesterday was this. So the top was 382. Okay. And it would have had barely owned Jalen McDaniels, barely owned Cody Martin, both Booker and Ayton, Montrezl Harrell, right? Is this lineup who's making this lineup? Like, how do you get to this? This isn't the important thing. Don't worry about how do I get to the nut lineup. Because we take a look at the fadeaway. The winning lineup was 353.5. The best possible lineup was 382. Your goal isn't to get the best possible lineup. It's probably going to contain some random dude that's barely owned that you don't need. Okay? So if anything, you should be weeding those guys out, saying, I don't know how I could have, there's nothing projection-wise that I would have ever gotten. Like he went, like, look at these projection versus actual, it doubled. So this is like a 3 standard deviation, right? Like Jalen McDaniels ceiling yesterday. If I could probably go, because I still have yesterday's. Let's say Jalen McDaniels. He's in the excluded. McDaniels. Jalen McDaniels, not Jaden McDaniels. Jalen McDaniels ceiling, which is the 84th percentile, is 23.52. Okay? Which means he scored 33, which is like over 3 standard deviations over the median. Right? Yeah, those are such outliers that, like, how did I not see it? No one's going to see that. Like that, those are things that are not seeable. And he's barely owned anyway. So it's like, it doesn't even matter. So those are the guys that if anything, you weed out. You go, how would I have possibly gotten to McDaniels or Harrell? Facing, obviously got time because of an injury. Or Cody Martin or Anthony Side. You take a look at the projected ownership and just say, get rid of those guys. Right? And then run it. If anything, then you're going, okay, well, let me take a look at the top 5 from there. If you want. Could you have gotten to Vanderbilt? Conchar. Who's playing Conchar? You're not getting there. Vanderbilt, was he in play? Was he technically in play? I guess so. Was he owned even? Let's take a look at the fadeaway. Was Vanderbilt even owned? 0.13%. So he was immaterial also. So we're going to get rid of him also. So where do we get Vanderbilt? Get rid of him. Because you don't need look, 371. You would have won by almost 20 points. So you don't care about the nut lineup. You care about lineups that you could have possibly built and still scored more. So I got rid of those guys. Who's playing Buddy Hield on this slate? Was Hield in play? Let's take a look. Hield was barely on, but I mean, it was 0.5% owned. So I guess he was playable. Right, you get rid of that and you build another 5. Let's see. Right. PJ Tucker. Who's getting to PJ Tucker on this slate? No one. Right. Take a look down here. Maybe you play, but right. Like you look at this lineup, 370. Graham, Hield, Giddey, Baisley, SGA. So you're playing 3 Thunder without any Lakers. playing Giannis and Ayton. But any of these lineups would have crushed. You would have won $100,000 and beaten the top score by 17 points. Like, did you need to play those lineups? No. Your goal is not to try to make the best possible lineup. It's just to try to make the better lineups than your opponents. So don't necessarily go into these historic projections from the day before or whenever and go, how would I have gotten to the optimal lineup? Possible, the best possible. No one gets there. You don't need that. That's not your goal. So going and saying, how would I have gotten to PJ Tucker and Jalen Victor? No one's getting there. There's no rationalization behind that. I think it's more important to do the process that I showed before of, had I have known X, I would have played more of Y or Z, and how would have my lineups differed? And would they end up being better or worse? Regardless of the results. But using the historic projections in lineup HQ, you could, okay, if I would have done this, you could kind of, if I would have had the same exposures, could I have ended up at a lineup that would have beat the top lineup? You could do that. I don't think it's that valuable of an exercise, but it's better than nothing. Oh, let's see. Anything else before we get out of here? Brian Tedeschi, can you walk through your process for late swap? For 150 lineups, 2 reasons why I can't do that. 1, I didn't play 150 lineups yesterday. And number 2, the late swap tool only really works. I can only show you when it's happening, right? The late swap tool serves no purpose now because no players would be locked. So I can't import a CSV of nothing. Like the late swap tool works the same way as the regular builder until after the first game locks. Because the only purpose of the late swap tool is to make sure in your CSV that a locked guy is still in the same cell, still in the same spot, right? Because you can't move him out. It'll give you an error if you upload to Draftkings or Fanduel or whatever. So all the late swap tool is doing is you download your CSV again from the site at that time, and it'll lock the guys in the right spots. And then you can rebuild whatever you want. But I can't show that process to you with 150 set. Number one, I need 150 set, and it would need to be between 7 and 11. Have to be between them. So all it would do the same thing as the actual build. I mean, it wouldn't lock anyone. If it's not locking anyone in, then you might as well just use why are you using the rebuilder side of it? Just use the regular what we've been doing. Trey, if you hit optimize in the right sidebar, does that always give you the top optimal regardless of what player pool you've created? No, it gives you the top based on your player pool. But it disregards all rules. So for instance, let's go to yesterday, right? So this was yesterday's. So based on my 34 players that I have in here, this would be the top optimal, right? So this was my cash line. If I take out Malik Monk, it'll show me the top optimal based on this player pool. So it won't have Malik Monk in it. He's not eligible to be part of this. But if I have a million player groups, or it doesn't take into account the build rules or it doesn't take into account anything else. All this lineup preview does is optimize for whatever's in your player pool. That's it. Right? If you only have 7 guys in your player pool, it's going to give you an error because it's going to be like, you don't have anything. Right? So if you want to build cash lineups and you don't want to and you already have all these rules and whatever, like I use the lineup preview. You just go, you click either, do I like this lineup? You look at this and you go, let's say you say to yourself, I'm not playing Melton cash. I'm not playing Batum in cash. Too volatile or whatever, if you wanted to, right? Like I can't play Nick Batum in cash. So you X him out and then you run it again. You go, how about this lineup without Batum? Giddy, Davis. How about this lineup? Oh, I like this lineup better. Okay, then there you go. You're done. You could obviously see the projection difference up here. So you're playing Westbrook, Monk, Giddy, Davis, Achua, Melton, Bain, McCollum. You're not playing Giannis, right? And let's say he's like, no, I need to make sure to play Giannis, but I don't want to play Batum. So just lock him in and then press the button again, right? So SGA, Monk, Allen, Giannis, Precious, Westbrook, Bain, Melton. You'll be like, okay, this is the best lineup that has Giannis and doesn't play Nick Batum, right? Because you'd excluded him. But it doesn't, the rules and the groups, and if you're making GPP lineups, like you could leave those alone because you just use the sidebar to do this type of thing. And then, that's the cash lineup I want to play. Okay. Then you enter it. Let's see. Anything else before we get out of here? A lot of questions. A lot of good, which is a good thing. Is the NBA premium subscription not enough to go back in yesterday's slate and change the projection? No. That we don't have that functionality. That's why I said leave up your lineup HQ from the night before. Like that's what I purposely did that, knowing that I'd be doing this show. I do that anyway. Because typically I leave everything because I may have to late swap. I may have to do other things, and then I end up, I fall asleep or whatever. I'm done. So when I come back to my computer in the morning, everything is the way it is where I left it at 10 o'clock last night. Anyway. Jeff Wong, did the top pros make more money from better projections? What percent is from building strategy versus better projections? I'd say 99% from building strategy, 1% from better projections. That's the difference. The best projection, the difference between projection sets, especially in basketball, is not that dramatic, right? I think the RotoGrinders projections, player projections, are the best in the industry, but it's not that much better than any. I mean, it's not that hard to build an NBA projection model that is good, and then have a team behind it that knows the rotations and everything and the usage rates and all those things to edit, throughout the day. This guy's in, this guy's out. What happens here? How does the matchup play out? They're going to play big. They're going to play small. Is this, stuff like that. So you can put in all the inputs and get accurate numbers. It's not that hard. That's not the hard part. The problem is that so much of the field is concerned more about predicting who's going to do well. Well, this guy projects better than that guy. It's like, well, what's their ownership? Why do I care? I just care about who's going to do well. Well, that's not how you play DFS. You're playing a peer-to-peer game competitively against other people. If everyone's looking at the same information, I'm going to play the top 150 optimal lineups. You're going to bleed money doing it. Yeah, you're playing high projected lineups that have limited relative value because so many other people are playing similar plays. You're not getting that many points that other people aren't getting. But that's where the mistakes come in. That's where casual or average players, they start from that and they go, I just want to play the 8 best plays in my lineup. Not realizing that for the contest that they're playing the $15 fadeaway, the goal isn't to play the best 8 players in your lineup. That's a strategy. That strategy, building strategies for double ups, where it's not progressively payout. It's just you get to the 50% mark and you all get paid the same amount. You don't get paid extra for getting more points than other people, right? Getting points that other people don't have. And a progressive payout where it's 100K to first, 40K to second, 20K to third, and by the time you get to 20th place, it's a kick in the nuts, right? The points that other people that other people don't are worth way more, which means you're not going to be playing 8 of the best plays. You're going to be playing 8 of the best plays in comparison to their ownership and the frequency in the contest. That second part is where most people go wrong. That's what building strategy would be, if you want to classify it as that. I could give 2 play. I could give a new DFS player the same projections that I use, the RotoGrinders projections. I could even give them the same ownership that I use, right? And I could tell them, I want you to build 5 lineups for the same contest that I'm playing, right? Fadeaway. Let's say we're both building five lineups for the fadeaway. I guarantee my lineups, all 5 of my lineups are going to be higher EV than their lineups. Because I don't know what they're going to do. Should I play this guy? They're either going to play lineups that are way too chalky and high projected, or they can play lineups that are way too contrarian and low projected. I'm going to find the building strategy that gives me plus EV lineups the whole way through. Different types, different standard deviations of lineups. And obviously, the best way to do that is through simulations, through data analysis like that. I do it the blunt way pretty well. I'm directionally accurate enough. So the projections in and of themselves for GPPs, no, without a building strategy, you're going to be a losing player. Now for cash games, then no, you play the top optimal lineup. You're probably good. If you play the top optimal lineup of any projection set in the industry, you're at worst trading rate. At worst. So basically you're losing a little bit of money to the rate at worst. But I see lineups built by average players in cash games in my head-to-heads. They're way worse, way worse. That are like, why are you giving up 12 points of projection for no apparent reason? Dude, like if I ran my projections, which are the RotoGrinders projections, your lineup would rank 6,700, right? I'm playing the top one. How often do you think you're going to beat me, right? So for cash games, projections, I mean, if there's screaming value, you could identify that yourself, typically by eye, right? Middleton is out today. Giannis is down to 7,000. I mean, obviously, you're playing a guy that's 4,000 underpriced. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, it's just basically Daniel and Jacob talking to each other. Sharp players talking to each other. That's what we try to do here. We got some sharp people in the chat always. I don't know why they spend their time here listening to me answer questions, as I always do. So this is what we do on the DFS pregame show. So give me that thumbs up on your way out the door. And these are evergreen. I mean, if you're like, I don't know what Jordan did that other day. It's like, dude, this is on YouTube all the. I mean, dude, you could go back. I've been doing the show for a year and a half, right? Took a bit of a hiatus during COVID or whatever. But like a year and a half, you could start from the beginning and watch these shows. They're pretty much all evergreen. We might be talking about a slate from a year and a half ago, an NFL slate, showdown slate from last year, but it's all based around these concepts. So to me, this is what playing DFS is. And a lot of people, and you're beating people by playing this way, which is profitable, which is the correct strategic way to play. You're beating 95% of people out there that think it's about basketball. And I didn't mention a damn thing about basketball this for an hour. Just, there's a bunch of numbers. And how do we put the numbers together better than other people put the numbers together? That to me, that's what the game is. That's exactly what the game is. And it applies to every sport. So you could those types of concepts of how to do that, the game theory is in my masterclass. Right? The theory of daily fantasy sports, how to think like a professional DFS player. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. So how I said, you go back a year and a half and watch every hour of the DFS pregame show. It's going to be you're going to be spending weeks upon weeks without sleep trying to watch all of that. All the main concepts, all of everything is in this 15-hour audio. It's like a seminar. It's like go to a seminar, me teaching you all of these concepts that you could apply to any sport, NFL, MLB, and NHL, PGA. It's not specific how to play this sport. It's how to play daily fantasy sports as a game and in a professional manner. Like your primary goal is to make money, right? It's to be plus EV and make money, right? And if playing this way is not fun for you, then that's perfectly fine. Play for entertainment. But my goal, to me, the scoreboard is making money over time, long term. So you can see all the chapters here. You can go to theoryofdfs.com and pick up the 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. And we got Showdown later today. We got NBA Crunch. We got NBA Grinders Live tonight, or Crunch Time, or free Crunch Time. There's something going on later today for NBA here. And then I'll be back for the Showdown show, for the pre-lock show. For the Showdown slate, we got everyone's out for the Packers. I don't know who's catching balls for the Packers tonight, but I'll be there. I'll be with STL Cards, breaking down the Thursday night football Showdown slate, and then I'll be back tomorrow for Casual Friday. And we got a big MMA card early Saturday. So hopefully no fights fall out, no replacements. I'll be able to get my little spreadsheet up and then give you some info on the shortly for the. Not the whole show for MMA on that card coming from Abu Dhabi and anything else you want to talk about tomorrow. Answering your DFS strategy questions, everything
that I could possibly do to teach you how to play DFS better, I do here on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.